What's going on YouTube? Big Dog Brett. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today we're going to be talking about the Clemson 2020 top returning players. And we're going to get into it right after this. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. You know what to do. Like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. Today, there is just like with LSU, there is a ton of information to cover. I'm going to go through it as quick as I can. Going to try and keep it around 20 minutes. We'll see what happens. So, first and foremost, hats off to Clemson, top contender every year. Going to be another top contender this year. I think they ended the season last year ranked number 2. Had a really solid recruiting class, and they've got a lot of players coming back. They've also lost some players. They lost 6 players to the NFL, and they lost 3 or 4 more just being at the end of the 5-year eligibility. So I'm going to go through it as quick as I can. I'm going to go through the good parts, and then when we get close to the end, I'm going to tell you where the deficiencies are so you can kind of get a feel for maybe where we're going to see Clemson kind of end up. So first and foremost, let's start out with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is a amazing talent. The guy threw for a little over 3,600 yards last year. Completion percentage somewhere around 66%. 36 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions. Not bad at all. But he also had over 500 yards rushing on the ground. So Trevor Lawrence had 103 attempts at rushing, and he had 400 attempts in passing. So, I mean, it's almost exactly 1 out of every 4 plays that he's snapping the ball, he's running. So, that's something other teams definitely have to account for. And it looks like I would not expect that to be removed from the game plan moving forward. So, we've got Chase Bryce as a backup quarterback. He's going to be back next year. Travis Etienne is going to be back next year, and I can't tell you how big of a player that is for Clemson. The guy is a heck of a talent, not just because he can run the ball, but he can also catch. Travis Etienne last year had over 1,600 rushing yards on 207 attempts, but he also had 865 yards with 66 receptions. 432 yards with 37 receptions. The wide receiver, Justin Ross, is the guy with the 865 yards. We'll get into him in a minute. But Travis Etienne, great set of hands, returning player, senior leadership guy. He's going to be on the team in the backfield returning. Pretty much all of the rushing components for Clemson are coming back. Lynn J. Dixon, 104 attempts for 635 yards. Ches, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, bro. Ches Malusi, not sure how you say that name. 44 attempts, 276 yards. And you've got Michael Dukes coming on. I think he's going to be a sophomore this year. Guy showed some real talent last year, especially only being a sophomore. He was a true freshman last year, I believe. With 32 attempts, 105 yards, and averaging 4.7 yards a carry, that's pretty solid for a running back, especially a freshman running back, given the fact that he's mixed in with all these other guys. You've also got Darian Rencher coming back. And he's another one of those guys who's kind of a backup but a producer. So you look at the rushing game. There's going to be Travis Etienne, Dixon, Trevor Lawrence, Malusi, Dukes, and Rencher. All those guys are coming back. So that total component there of their go-to guys is wholly together. Now, when we jump over to the receiving side of things, it changes a little bit because this is where you start seeing some of the gaps show up. So T. Higgins, if you don't know who T. Higgins is, you wasn't paying attention the last 2 or 3 years. The guy's an absolutely incredible talent. 59 receptions, 1,167 yards, and averages. This guy averages almost 20 yards a catch with a 65-yard long. 13 touchdowns, top producer on the receiving corps by far. He went to the Bengals, so he's not going to be back. DeAndre Overton, a wide receiver, 22 receptions, 352 yards, averaged 16 yards. He's not coming back because he's ineligible. It was his 5th year last year. Cornell Powell, wide receiver, again, not eligible, 5-year, and he's gone. Now, let's talk about what is there. You got Justin Ross as a wide receiver who actually had more receptions than T. Higgins, but he had 7 more receptions, but he was short 300 yards of production. He came in with 865 yards, averaging 13 yards a carry with 8 touchdowns. He's going to be coming back. He's going to be a huge weapon. He's going to be WR1. He's going to be the first target in the field. So when you see this guy was splitting tosses back and forth with T. Higgins, but this year somebody's got to step up and fill that role. Now, I don't expect that to be Travis Etienne, who was the 3rd leading receiver on the team. He had 37 receptions for 432 yards. A lot of these are caught out of the backfield, which is fine. He was averaging 11 yards a carry. Then you've got Amari Rodgers, who's a wide receiver, who's a senior this year. This is the guy that I expect to have to step up, so that you're gonna see Justin Ross roll into the role of T. Higgins, and then you're gonna see Amari Rodgers roll into the spot of maybe Justin Ross. So those guys should be splitting. They're gonna see a lot more play time. They're gonna split more receptions. Both of these guys are really gonna have to work in tandem together and work well if Clemson's gonna continue to use the same play style they have, which I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. Seems to be working pretty good so far. Then you've got Joe Nagata, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's going to be that guy who's filling Amari Rodgers' role. He's at 17 receptions last year for 240 yards. He averaged 14 yards a carry as a freshman. This year he's a sophomore. So you're going to see some more action out of him. And then you've got Frank Ladson Jr., 9 receptions, 128 yards, averaging 14 yards a carry. Now, the reason I bring these guys up is because when you roll out a top guy like T. Higgins, all of those shoes, all of those places shift up one position. So more is put on each guy. They're going to be expected to do more, be more, carry more. So they did lose some guys here. They lost their number 1 guy. They probably lost their number 2, number 3 guy, depending on how you look at it, because DeAndre Overton averaged higher. He was the 2nd highest average per catch. But when you lose a guy like T. Higgins who got 13 touchdowns and your next guy on the team is Justin Ross at 8, that's basically a 50% increase, 50, 60, whatever it is. It's a big increase. So he's going to be expected to produce that. He's going to be given the ball in the end zone more, and he's going to be the go-to guy at WR1. So receiving core, getting a lot of good weapons back. There's going to be some guys that's going to have to step up. I don't see any problems with Dabo being able to train these guys up. Just so long as he doesn't cry about it. A little jab there. So, all right, let's look at the kickers coming back. B.D. Potter, a guy averages like 62%. He's a reliable guy. He's nothing spectacular, but he can get the job done. So he's coming back. Nothing to really worry about there. Now we get into the defense. This is where things start to get a little shaky. Not saying they don't have some talent here, but just trying to be as honest as I can. A lot of pieces left. So I'm a little bit concerned at how good the defense is going to be. I still believe the defense is going to be good, but I just don't see that it's going to be as good as it was last year, because there's a lot of stuff that's gone. Kind of the same song, different verse for Clemson as for LSU. Lost a lot of key players, and let's see if they can reload that. So you're looking at the biggest loss, in my opinion, was the linebacker Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons was a monster. This is the number 1 sack producer in the linebacker core. He had 46 yards in sacks, pushing offenses back. He had 3 interceptions. He had 67 solo tackles as a linebacker and 37 assists. Basically, if the ball was anywhere near him, he's there. But he's gone. He got drafted to the Cardinals. The guy is an absolute monster. He is going to be ridiculously good in the NFL. I can tell you from, when we lost our best linebacker that I've ever seen at UGA, I can promise you it was felt. So you're looking at the next guy on the list here that's gone is Chad Smith, also a linebacker. He is gone. And by the way, he's not the drummer, not the drummer that looks like Will Ferrell. Different Chad Smith. So Chad Smith, 35 solo tackles, 40 assist tackles, 3.5 sacks. Another guy that pushes offenses back with 37 sack yards. He's gone. So then you've got Kevon Wallace, who's a safety, 47 solo tackles, 25 assists, 2 sacks, pushing offense back 21 yards. He's gone to the Eagles. Then you got Tanner Muse, who's a safety, 37 solo tackles, 18 assists, and 2 sacks from a safety, with 16 sack yards. He's gone to the Raiders. You drop down and look at A.J. Terrell, cornerback. This guy was a lockdown cornerback. 24 solo tackles, 10 assists. He's credited with half a sack, but you know how that goes, 4 sack yards, 2 interceptions. He's gone to the Falcons. So that, and by the way, guys, those were, with the exception of maybe James Skalski, those were the top 5 players, in my opinion, on the defense, like the receiving core cornerback set. I'll get into the defensive line here in a minute. But those guys, that's a big loss. That's a big loss. There's a lot of leadership there. Goodness gracious. Just off of that one set, there's 4 NFL players. 4. So when 4 out of 5 of those guys that you left went to the NFL from this set, that's a concern. We've got to see if that can happen. Now, James Skalski, who's a linebacker, 45 solo tackles, 45 assists, 31 sack yards, 4.5 sacks, no interceptions though, but that's okay. He's a 5th-year senior, so he's going to be stepping up into that role. Is he going to be able to fill the job of Isaiah Simmons? I don't know. But even if he does, Nolan Turner is going to have to step his game up. He had 31 tackles, but no sacks, no, he didn't have any of that. So then you've got one more linebacker at Balin Spector, who's 22 solo tackles, 21 assists, and 2 sacks for a loss of 12 yards. That guy has no interceptions either. So to me, is it likely that all of these guys are going to be able to step up and fill these roles? I don't know. Dabo does a good job of coaching guys, but these guys have a long way to go. This is a lot of stuff. You're basically losing half your defense, in my opinion, from your linebacker and cornerback safety core. Now, that having been said, to give you an idea of how big that deficit is, if you add up the players that's gone, you lose 7, 10, 12, 14, 15 sacks out of 30. You lose half of your sacks that year. Interceptions, you lose 2, 4, 8, 11, 12. You lose 12 out of 16. So out of the 16 sacks you got last year, 12 of them came from the guys that are gone. So we're going to see what's going to happen with that. It's a little concerning. We'll see what happens. There's still some really talented players that are there and are going to fill some of those roles, but we'll see what happens. Now, also on your O-line, you lost Tremaine Ankrum. He's gone to the LA Rams. Another phenomenal player. I think he went in the 6th round. I'm not sure. Maybe 4th, but I think 6th. This guy was kind of an anchor on that O-line, an absolute talent. Now, let's talk about the defensive ends, the defensive tackles. Okay, so your defensive ends that are coming back, you have only 3 seniors and 1 junior on the whole roster for defensive ends. On your defensive tackles, you have 1 senior and 4 juniors on the whole roster. It's a little concerning. Defensive tackle Jacob Edwards, one of the guys who's coming back, played a total of 5 snaps his whole career at Clemson. Jordan Williams, who's a returner, tough guy, starter. He was in for 377 snaps in 2019. This guy's going to be your anchor point. This guy's going to be the guy that they look to lead this team. I think it's Nick Edis. He's one of your seniors. He's coming back. I think he's a senior. I can't find that he's even played 1 snap of the ball. So I don't know if he's going to play or not. James Edwards played 12 snaps in all of 2019. And then Niles Pinckney, who's a starter senior, he's probably the biggest weapon on the defensive line. This guy has some talent. Can they rally around him and Jordan Williams? Hopefully. We'll see what happens. But that's it. I mean, that's what's coming back for your defensive line. Considering how crazy good the Clemson defense was, I was a little bit surprised to look at what's coming back and go, that's it? But we'll see what happens. I mean, you know, Dabo's a heck of a coach, so we'll see what he can do. Now I'm going to pass my concerns down to the offensive line. You have one offensive tackle junior, who's a junior, who's coming back, and Jackson Carman. One offensive junior. You've got three offensive linemen. Jeez, can't talk today. Good night. Blake Vinson, Jr., coming back. Zach McIntosh, O-line junior, coming back, 5'11", by the way. Cade Stewart, offensive line senior, and then Matt Bockhorst, however you say his name. Apologize for your pronunciation, sir. Offensive guard junior. That's it. That's juniors and seniors. By the way, the offensive line now has 10 freshmen, 10 offensive linemen that are freshmen coming back. And for some odd reason, there's 14 linebackers that are coming in as freshmen. And there's 3 offensive tackles that are freshmen. That's it. So for me, that's really there's some parts and pieces there that are going to be really interesting to look out. If you want to know my assessment, I expect the offense to do pretty good. I have some questions about the defense because it lost a lot of talent. I have some questions about that receiving core. I think the receiving core is going to be fine. The running backs are going to be great. But the defense, I got some questions. Hopefully, they'll be able to pull it out. I still don't see any problem with them running through the ACC like water through a sift, but like water through a funnel, however you want to say it. But in my opinion, still a really solid team, but they're going to have to work some kinks out. Hopefully, they'll be able to get it figured out. So, well, that's my assessment of the 2020 Clemson top returning players. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share. You guys have a great day. And don't forget, as always, God bless. Go Dogs.